from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to our Monday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. Happy to be here. If you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call. 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez is the phone number. And plenty of things to discuss tonight. But I think the big story today is the revelation that there was a Parkinson's specialist, a neurologist specializing in Parkinson's disease, that's visited the White House multiple times. And this, I'm going to say, caught the White House by storm, where they weren't able to really get to the bottom of that. So for the next couple of segments, I'm going to work through that. I also want to reflect a little bit on our nation's birthday. I hope everybody had a great 4th of July weekend. It fell on a Thursday, so hopefully everybody was off for a couple of days, or even if you're off for one day, hope you enjoyed it. If nothing else, I hope you had a good weekend. And I just, I'll get into it a little bit later, how I celebrated. But it's always important, I think, to maintain some sort of tradition. And whether it's the way you celebrate the 4th of July, the way you honor your country, or the way you have someone in the White House, right? And I think usually the tradition that we have in the White House is someone that is mentally sound, that's in full control of their mental faculties. However, we don't know what's going on, right? America was front and center when they saw Joe Biden on full display at the debate now a week, 2 weeks ago. And voila, everything that we've been saying. And again, I'm guilty as charged for making fun of someone who has cognitive deficits. I realize that when I call him Joe El Baboso Biden. But the reality is that he has those moments where he's, babeando. And it's a warranted title. And I don't really mean to make fun of him. I really mean to draw attention to his inability to articulate, to his inability to really, I think, make spur-of-the-moment, quick judgments, which clearly are out of his grasp. And we saw that at the debate. But the mainstream media, as they're called, were trying to paint the picture today, right? Not even trying to cover, trying to paint the picture, which tells me they probably are in cahoots with the rest of the Democrat Party, who's continually trying to get Biden to stop. But Biden's doubling down, and he's like, I'm not going anywhere. So I want to start off with setting the stage with what the media was doing. I think we got ABC News with a back and forth between their White House correspondent, who is on the lawn of the White House, and their studio in New York City, getting the play-by-play on what happened. And then I'll give you the actual words from Jean-Pierre, from Biden, and from everybody else. Listen to this.
There was a Parkinson's expert that has been visiting the White House 8 times in the last 8 months.
Yeah, Karen, you heard the very testy exchanges between the White House press corps and Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary. She could not answer that very simple question with either a yes or no. She just kept on repeating that the president has seen a neurologist several times in connection with his annual physical, but she could not explain why Dr. Kennard, who is a Parkinson's expert, a neurological expert, why he had come to the White House 8 times in the span of about 8 months. She did say, and this is important, she did say the president does not have Parkinson's and is not being treated for Parkinson's. As to your question, Kira, about whether or not the president could down the line take a cognitive test and put this to rest once and all for the American people? Well, Karine again repeated that the president doesn't need to take a cognitive test because he takes a test every day doing this job. That carries the same response that President Biden gave to our George Stephanopoulos in that interview on Friday. It is something that has frustrated a lot of Democrats and allies who are asking why the president doesn't just take the test, release it to the public, and allow Democrats to move on from this question about his mental acuity and his mental fitness. The president, in his interview with ABC News, he also said that his doctor said he does not need to take a cognitive test either.
So that is the back and forth with the folks from the news. Now, this gets a little bit more intricate, right? Because the White House was, going back and forth with reporters this morning over this, at times, I guess, heated exchange over whether the administration was going to be a little bit more forthcoming about Biden's health. And again, people are concerned because they saw and heard what happened in the debate. So it becomes a question, in my opinion, of legitimacy, right? People want to know what is going on. So, of course, people ask the White House. Now, of course, Karine Jean-Pierre has a job, right? She has a job, and she's going to do her job. I understand that. But I don't think Biden makes it any easier for her when he won't say anything either, right? Now, he did address some of that on The Morning Joke on MSNBC. So they asked him these questions. Again, it was a friendly audience, which is okay. That's fair. I have Republicans on all the time, conservatives. I invite the liberals. Not many of them accept. So I get it. But Biden did address that and the fact that some Democrats want him to get out of the way on The Morning Joke. I want you to listen to this one, cut number 4. This is Biden on with Joe Scarborough, The Morning Joke, MSNBC with Mika Brzezinski. Check this out.
Have you been tested for any age-related illnesses, pre-Parkinson's, or anything like that that might explain sort of having a night like that where you couldn't finish sentences?
Look, I had before, I was feeling so badly before the debate. When I came back, they tested me for, I thought maybe I had COVID, maybe there was something wrong, I had an infection or something. They tested me, they gave me those tests, I was clear. So, but look, I had a bad night. But the fact of the matter is, look at what I'm doing. I mean, let me put it this way. If there was something that was wrong that night, it's not like it comes and that's one night and it goes away. That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself, been testing everywhere I go, going out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out till 2 o'clock in the morning that very night. That very night. It drives me nuts, people talking about this.
Now, of course, Joel Baboso Biden was on with George Stephanopoulos, and he just said it, right? He said, I'm all over the place. He said, I've been out there. And he has been, right? He's been trying to be out there. He had that probably the biggest rally I've ever seen him be a part of. And he's trying to redeem himself for this bad performance in this empty room where there was just a handful of people. Hopefully we'll be talking to one of those people in a little bit. But the point that I'm making here is, had he just delivered when everybody was watching, he wouldn't have to be playing so much damage control. But this is where he is. So he's on with George Stephanopoulos on Friday saying he's refusing to take any cognitive tests because he feels he does that every day. Listen to this.
I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination?
No, no one said I had to. No one said, they said I'm good.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test. Everything I do. You know, not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not how it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. Madeleine Albright was right. And every single day, for example, today, before I come out here, I'm on the phone with the Prime Minister of well, anyway, I shouldn't get into detail, but with Netanyahu. I'm on the phone with the new Prime Minister of England. I'm working on what we're doing with regard to in Europe with regard to expansion of NATO and whether it's going to stick. I'm taking on Putin. I mean, every day, there's no day I go through that are not those decisions I have to make every single day.
And you have been doing that, and the American people have been watching, yet their concerns about your age and your health are growing. So that's why I'm asking, to reassure them, would you be willing to have the independent medical evaluation?
Watch me there's a lot of time left in this campaign. It's over 125 days.
So
the answer, decision.
The right answer right now is no, you don't want to do that, right?
No, I've already done it.
So the answer right now is no, I've already done it, but he hasn't done it. And that's why you've got the White House physician, former White House physician, Ronnie Jackson, out there asking very pointed questions from somebody who has been the White House physician. And I think these are questions that we should really ask ourselves and get an answer to. You've got the media asking Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, questions that are also unanswered. So I want to know, and I'm sure you want to know, what is going on with Joe El Baboso Biden, right? You went out there, you embarrassed yourself. Now it's time for you to say, look, I'm doing great. I'm not just going to show off and come on these shows and stonewall you. No, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to release these test results, the exam results. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I'm going to bet that it's not, being that Joe El Baboso Biden just said he wasn't going to do it. But I want you to hear the comments from Ronnie Jackson and the comments from Karine Jean-Pierre, because this is a big story. And with multiple visits from a Parkinson's specialist neurologist visiting the White House at the recommendation of the current White House physician, I think the American people have a right to know. Wouldn't you say? Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back. Amigos, Rich Valdez, keeping you company straight till 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Check us out at richvaldez.com, by the way, if you're streaming the show. And we're talking about Joe Biden. Joe Biden and his miserable debate performance, which now has many people asking, what is the situation with the president's mental ability, his cognitive ability? And what I find interesting here is that not even the Democrats are trying to cover for him because they're scared. They feel like they can't win with this guy. They're hoping he'll step aside. He's doubling down, and we'll get into that shortly. But right now, I wanted to play you a clip of former White House physician turned congressman from Texas, Ronnie Jackson, Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who was, again, the White House physician. And he was on with Laura Ingraham on the Fox News channel, and he very plainly says, look, the cat is out of the bag. Listen to this.
Dr. Kennard, who's a movement disorder specialist and a neurologist from Walter Reed, came to the White House. He was waved into the residence clinic, which is the clinic directly below the president's bedroom, which is specifically to treat the president and members of the first family. Unless they're saying that the people that filled out the logs are lying, then it's established that Dr. Kennard came to the White House and he came to the residence clinic at the beckoning of Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who's the president's physician. And why are we listening to this box of rocks who calls herself the press secretary talk to us about the president's medical issues? Why isn't Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who's the appointed physician to the president, standing at the podium and answering questions from the press about what is going on with the president? I would tell you at this particular point, Laura, I think it's medical malpractice if he hasn't been seen by a neurologist yet to evaluate his cognitive issues. I'm sure he has, and I'm sure he's probably being treated, and they won't bring Dr. O'Connor to the podium because they don't want us asking asking those questions of him because he's going to have to admit that, yes, he's been evaluated, and most likely, yes, he's being treated for whatever cognitive issue he's got going on that's on display for the whole world at this point.
Right. Well, Ari, at some point she referenced that, well, the specialists are available for anyone at the White House. She said that today, and I worked at the White House.
That's the gist of what you've got with Ronnie Jackson, former White House physician. And I think those are important questions from somebody who had that job, saying, why is it that we're not hearing from the current White House physician? Right? Very, very important question, very, very key fact that we're missing here. And in fact, that is what dominated the majority of today's press briefing. People this morning were in the White House trying to find out what is the deal. Why isn't Karine Jean-Pierre not naming the specialist, Dr. Kevin Kennard? Why it was his name visible on the public log of visitors and then not, and this back and forth that was going on. So one of the reporters that was really upset about this was Ed O'Keefe from CBS News. And this is a very interesting exchange, and it's a little bit long, but I really want you to hear it because it's just so interesting. Check this out.
It's a very basic, direct question.
Wait. Hold on. Wait a second.
Eight times, or at least once, in regards to the president specifically.
Hold on a second.
Not what you should be able to answer by this point.
Wait, no. No, wait a minute. Ed, please. A little respect here, please. So every year, around the president's physical examination, he sees a neurologist. That's 3 times, right? So I am telling you that he has seen a neurologist 3 times while he has been in this presidency. That's what I'm saying. I am telling you that he has seen them 3 times. That is what I'm sharing with you, right? So every time he has a physical, he has had to see a neurologist. So that is answering that question.
No, it's not.
No, it is. It is. You're asking me.
Dr. Kevin Kennard, come to the White House.
But I also said to you, Ed, I also said to you, for security reasons, we cannot share names. We cannot share names.
You cannot
we
share
have
names
to. We have
of
to.
Others he would have met with.
We
but
cannot.
You can share names in regards to if someone came here in regards to the president.
We cannot share names of specialists broadly, from a dermatologist to a neurologist. We cannot share names. There are security reasons. We have to protect. I understand that. I hear you.
Right there for anyone to see.
Ed, I hear you. I cannot from here confirm any of that because we have to keep their privacy. I think they would appreciate that too. We have to give them.
The doctor.
We have to keep their privacy.
It is public information.
I hear you. Guys, hold on a second. There's no reason to go back and forth and be in this aggressive way.
Miffed around here about how information's been shared with the press corps about him.
What do you missed about? What do you missed about?
Everything he just asked about.
And then every time I come back and I answer the question that you guys asked.
Correctly, you didn't have to come back and clean it up.
I never answered the question incorrectly. That is not true. I was asked about a medical exam. I was asked about a physical. That was in the line of question that I answered. And I said, no, he did not have a medical exam. And I still stand by that. Matter of fact, the president still stands by that. He had a verbal check-in. That is something that the president has a couple times a week.
Now in regards to Dr. Kevin Kennard.
And I am telling you right now that I am not sharing confirming names from here. It is a security reasons. I am not going to do that, Ed. It doesn't matter how hard you push me. It doesn't matter how angry you get with me. I'm not going to confirm a name.
Well, she's not confirming a name, but we know the name. The Hill has published a name. Ronnie Jackson spoke about the name on Fox News Channel. Everybody knows that a neurologist named Dr. Kevin Kennard was in the White House, and we don't know why or what's going on, and he is a Parkinson's specialist. Anyway, we continue with more on this, and Biden doubling down, saying, I'm not going anywhere. Straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So Karine Jean-Pierre is upset that Ed O'Keefe pressed her hard on the issue of why there's this unnamed neurologist visiting Biden 8 times and whatnot, and they're going at it, and he's getting real hot under the collar. Meanwhile, you've got the man himself, Joe Barboso Biden, who has been out. He's been out all over the place trying to show face and show strength. On Friday, he was at the Sherman Middle School in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. And we're on in Wisconsin, a few different stations. So big shout out to everybody in Wisconsin. But he said something funny, you know, for a guy that's really being scrutinized for his cognitive deficits, saying that you're going to beat a guy that you beat in 2020 probably doesn't really sell you as really knowing what's going on. But listen to this.
You voted for me to be your nominee. No one else. You, the votes. The voters did that. And despite that some folks don't seem to care who you voted for, well, guess what? They're trying to push me out of the race. No! Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020.
I'll beat him again in 2020. You got to love it. The comedy writes itself around here. So I want to get into this again because there's a lot of scrutiny surrounding President Biden, who on this program is known affectionately, of course, as Joe Barboso Biden. And Joe Barboso Biden's under the gun here because of his miserable debate performance. And I want to bring in somebody who knows a thing or two about presidential debates. She's been a writer for the Fox News channel during the presidential debates. She's been on this program many times. She's the author of the War Against Women. Jennifer Kerns, welcome back.
Hey, Rich, great to be with you. Grandpa is staying in the race.
He's staying in the race. He made it very clear. Unbelievable. Now, Jen Kerns, I know that we invited you on the night of the debate, and you respectfully declined because you had other engagements. What were you doing?
You're going to put me on the spot?
Yes.
Oh, Rich. Okay, so I have to tell you this. For 20 years, I have given my life to politics. And the night of the debate, I had a first date with a longtime NYPD retired detective, 9/11 first responder, former bodyguard for Taylor Swift. And I was like, you know, at some point, you just have to do something for yourself. You have to have a girls' night out, first date out.
Nice. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was a good time. Hope he picked up the tab.
Oh, he did. He did. He's a gentleman.
Good. Well, it's good to have you on. Now, being that you know what's going on, and I know that you were in town for doing analysis on the debates and all of that, I want to get your take on I think obviously the American people have a big issue, a very big issue with what they saw from their president. And I think they'd written it off in the past as, oh, that's just Jennifer Kerns being crazy. That's just Rich Valdez being a bigot and a xenophobe and whatever they want to call me, right? A shill for Trump. But what they saw was their reality. They saw their president stumbling, fumbling, and bumbling. And this was a moment for a lot of people to say, this is not our standard bearer, or it can't be. This is not who can lead America into the next bastion of glory. And Democrats are obviously concerned. They're trying to push him out. He says, I'm not going anywhere. Take it, Jen Kerns.
Well, you know, this debate is something that I think that Democrats, and especially Joe Biden, will regret doing. Remember, he only took this dare because he was trying to prove himself to his real owners, which is Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett, right? He was proving that he had
China.
a strength fist. And China and so many other foreign countries that we probably don't even know about. And, you know, the irony here is that Joe Biden was trying so badly to prove that he was the best candidate for the job and that he could hold his own against Donald Trump. And look how disastrous that ended up being for him. I think one of the interesting news items of today is the New York Times Siena poll that came out this morning. I think it is disastrous for the Biden camp. They basically asked, this is the number one question you can ask Rich Valdez of voters during an election year when we're about 4 months away from the election. And that is, if the election were held today, who would you vote for? And that forces people, into really thinking, and I've done polling for 30 years. I've read the crosstabs on every single poll. That is really the one question where you really put the screws to the voters, where you say, okay, you have to make a choice that if it were held today, who would you vote for? And it's one of the most accurate polling questions you can ask. And the New York Times, the most liberal newspaper in America, and the Siena poll asked that question of voters, and 49% of them said today they would vote for Donald Trump if the election were held today, and only 43% said they would actually support Joe Biden. So Donald Trump is winning on the national scale in a very accurate question, a very predictive question for the 2024 elections, and he's winning by a full 6 points, and that's probably even underrated by about 3 points, just given, that conservatives tend to be a little underrated in polls. So this is extremely devastating for the Biden camp. If you pair that with the USA Today Suffolk poll, which also came out today, 74% of Americans now say Joe Biden does not have the mental capacity to serve as president of the United States. That is worse than the 49% unfavorable rating, the upside down rating that Hillary Clinton had with people when she lost to Donald Trump. 74% is that is just a devastating number. I don't think Joe Biden will be able to get over.
Very telling, very telling. And again, when the New York Times has been hitting him, I think, since like the day after the debate to kind of get out and kind of pushing him in that direction with editorials and whatnot. And it seems like there's no viable or alternative, right? At least from my political stance, right? My observation politically, I don't see anybody else that can do any better than Biden. What's the big to do here? Why is there so much pressure on Biden to leave if there isn't a major candidate waiting in the wings that can squash Trump?
But there is a candidate waiting in the wings, and his name is Gavin Newsom. Except there's one thing, Rich, I don't think he's going to be subbed in at the top of the ticket. I think what the Biden camp could do and what they should do if they wanted to save themselves, and we've seen Gavin Newsom, right? We've seen him go to the debate as a surrogate for Joe Biden. There is a trust level built up there with Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden. We also saw Gavin Newsom be invited to the State of the Union address, which is not something you normally have, especially a West Coast governor do. You really don't have any governors come from states. It's usually a federal issue. So there is some relationship there that has been built in trust between Joe Biden and Gavin Newsom. And here's what I think will happen. Joe Biden, he's not going to get rid of his delegates. It would be difficult even for him to get rid of his delegates at the convention. It would lead to a floor fight. You would have the super delegates all fighting. So I think that would be a messy situation. He also is sitting on top of, remember, a $200 million war chest. And that war chest, according to the Federal Election Commission, the FEC, cannot just be signed over to Kamala Harris or some other candidate. There is a process and a procedure for that. And so Joe Biden would likely just sit on that war chest, for some time in his, campaign account. So that complicates things, right? But the one thing I know they could do, and the one thing that Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom have done for 30 years in San Francisco, Rich, they have always agreed to switch places. They say, oh, you want to run for district attorney of San Francisco? Okay, great. You do that. I'm going to go run for mayor. By the way, these two, they can't stand each other. But just like good Democrats, they will work together for the greater good for each one of their careers. And so they've been doing this since 1996 in San Francisco. I've watched them come up. I've watched them do it. I watched them, kind of do-si-do around each other in City Hall on important issues, And these two, mark my words, Kamala Harris, first of all, wants to be governor of California. That was always her end game. She loves her house in L.A., she wants to end up back in California. And at the same time, Gavin Newsom, who's pretty miserable in California public policy these days, wants to be on the national stage. He's over the weekend, he was talking to dazzles of press about Joe Biden. So these two could actually switch places, and that's probably the only way that Joe Biden could get Kamala Harris off the ticket and simultaneously save himself, because he has something that Kamala Harris wants, which is to become governor of California.
Folks, we're on with Jennifer Kerns, and she knows what she's talking about. She spent a number of years as the spokesperson for the California Republican Party, so she knows these two characters really well. Jen Kerns, I want to get a little bit more insight from you, so stick around, folks. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again, I'm here for two reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot. Just a straight shot. Everybody gets a fair chance, number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce the president. Challenge me at the convention.
Challenge me at the convention. So I think that's what might happen again. That is Joel Baboso Biden on The Morning Joke today on MSNBC. And even though she dissed us to go on a date with a retired cop, Jen Kerns is with us. Jen Kerns, welcome back. And we'll accept it. We'll allow it. We love the NYPD. And I feel like Biden is being obstinate here. He's saying, hey, you want to get me out of here? I'm not going unless I'm kicking and screaming. We had Congressman Matt Gaetz on, and he said Biden's out the door. It's definitely going to be Kamala, and he predicts that it's going to be Gretchen Whitmer as the running mate, so it could be a twofer of intersectionality, the first black woman, the first white woman, the first everything. It's all sorts of women. What do you think?
You know, I just don't think it's going to go that way. Remember, the reason Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris was she was such a dismal failure, such a comical character, that was really his insurance policy of, he knew they would never invoke the 25th Amendment against him because guess what? People don't want Kamala Harris as their president. And guess what? They still don't want her. If you look at her unfavorable ratings are also higher than Hillary Clinton's were. And I had a mentor many years ago. He was a brilliant guy, worked with Reagan and Pete Wilson out in California. And, I worked for Boris Yeltsin at some point. He always said, don't ever look at someone's favorable numbers. Always look at their unfavorables because that's truly what people think of them. And that is what they will propel their vote on. And so when I look at Kamala Harris, I just think she is a non-starter in terms of the ticket, continuing to be on it. I think she is probably currently working the terms of her surrender, working out some sort of deal with Gavin Newsom. Think about it. And again, I know it sounds wild, but Gavin Newsom could be subbed onto that ticket. He would bring a couple of things that would actually please the base. First of all, he brings youth to the ticket. He's got a young wife. He's got 4 young children. He loves to take them on the campaign trail, hold a baby on the hip. That would give some youth to the Democrat ticket, with Biden's age now being the number one concern other than the economy and the border crisis. Number 2, Gavin Newsom, he is a progressive savior. He's the guy who pushed gay marriage. He's the one that, gave out the first gay marriage licenses against the law back in 2008. He's been a champion of transgender indoctrination. The first drag queen story hour was in San Francisco when he was mayor. He's pro-open drug market. He's pro-legalizing drugs. He's pro-homeless. He was pro-COVID lockdowns. The list goes on and on. This guy is a champion for the far left wing of the party, which is the group that's running the show. And so I think some of those conversations may be happening. We have to see. But look, it's easy for Joe Biden, right, to say, oh, go ahead and challenge me at the convention. He knows, again, he has every single delegate he needs to become the nominee. So it's easy for him to say, hey, you challenge me at the convention. And number two, he has that $200 million war chest, which the Democrats would have an awfully hard time raising again if they had to just go back to zero and face a very, fundraise happy Donald Trump, who's really enjoying his fundraising prowess as well. So no win situation for the Democrats. Maybe a winning situation for Joe if he holds on to the nomination, but he's pretty much fast-tracking the Jimmy Carter pattern of 1980, where in May and June of 1980, with a subpar candidate, and the Democrats had overblown Jimmy Carter's power and his power to get reelected. Joe Biden is following that exact trajectory to a T. He was also facing off a guy who was very charismatic, but was kind of a wild card in politics, a guy by the name of Ronald Reagan, who was an actor. He was kind of unconventional. That opponent in this case, some years later, it very much also fits Donald Trump. And so if I were to look at this matchup on July 8th, it's really shaping up to be like 1980 all over again. And if Biden remains the nominee, it's going to be a landslide defeat for him.
Outstanding analysis. Now, Jen Kerns, I know that our time is limited, but do you think this goes down before the Democrat convention? Do you think the Democrats start to play hardball and Kamala says, you know what, I'm about to put together a coalition and use the 25th Amendment to get Joe out of here if he doesn't make a move? Or do you think it plays out at some other juncture between now and then?
You know, I just don't think the Democrats have the guts, the backbone to really invoke the 25th Amendment. I just don't think so. And I know for a fact, because I still have friends who are political scientists in the Bay Area, that Kamala is making those calls. She's calling former mentors, people like Willie Brown, the former mayor of San Francisco, asking, how should I tread through this? What do I want out of this? And she's smart to be doing so. Does she want to come back and run for governor? Does she want to take on her boss, the president of the United States? The problem is, as I said, they have set Kamala Harris up in a trap since the beginning. So here's what will happen, Rich. If she challenges Joe Biden, then she automatically gets a one-way Amtrak ticket off of the ticket for 2024. So she has to play this very carefully. She cannot be the one that invokes the 25th Amendment. It has to be somebody else, maybe somebody like Hakeem Jeffries or someone like that. And that's, I think, what the meeting today on Capitol Hill was. But Kamala's got to be very careful here. She's got to sort of play the victim, and she's used to doing that in her career, her 30-year career. She's got to play the victim, woe is me, and a party of DEI, I, the black female, got tossed off the ticket. I'm going to go home to California and lick my wounds and maybe run for governor.
Wow. A lot to take apart there. Jen Kerns, let everybody know how they can get a copy of your book and learn more about the wonderful work you're doing.
Well, they can get the book at therealwaronwomen.com, and they can listen to my show anytime, allamericanradio.com. And next debate night, I won't have a debate, but come out and have a drink with us sometime. I'm back in New York.
I'm looking forward to it. Jennifer Kerns, everybody. Jen Kerns, you are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Rich.
See you soon. You bet. All right, amigos, your calls and more coming up straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with your thoughts. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And let's go to Steve in Atlanta, Georgia on WGKA. Steve, very quickly.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Rich. It's Rick or Rich. I don't know.
All right, Steve, thanks for your call. Way to waste some time and not know what you're talking about. Anyway, folks, we've got a lot going on straight ahead. We're going to talk about the importance of education the importance of faith-based education, and so much more coming up. So keep it locked right here. Hour number 2 is coming up right now. Plus, then we got hour number 3, Open Phone America. It's Monday night. We're live. We're national. I'm Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Monday night. Our phone number, if you want to join our late-night national town hall conversation, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And Joe Biden has fired back at calls to step down. He dares Democrats to challenge him at the convention. We'll see what happens there. Then there was a radio host who admitted that in an interview with Biden, the questions he was asked to ask Biden were scripted by the campaign, that they'd given him what he should be asking. And I think this was reinforced by his network. Now, this is similar to what Sage Steele reported when she interviewed Biden, saying the whole thing was scripted. So interesting. All of it's very interesting to note. Anyway, they've now cut ties with this radio host who admitted this, saying, I guess she let the cat out of the bag and that wasn't allowed. Let me see. Adam Schiff is deflecting all of the calls that are out there for Biden to take a cognitive test. And you've heard Biden himself say, forget about it. He's not doing it. He's president and that's enough. Even Jen Psaki is now on the record saying that she admits that the Stephanopoulos-Biden interview that we played a clip of in the last hour was not great. And I guess that's putting it lightly. And things are trending towards Republican victories in various places that are unexpected, including Nevada. And on the social front, there is a story coming out of Oklahoma. The state superintendent of schools, Ryan Walters, announced on Thursday that all public schools under his jurisdiction would be incorporating the Bible and the Ten Commandments into their curriculum. This sparked a lot of problems, right? A lot of controversy. I want you to get a report on this. Check this out.
After a major Oklahoma Supreme Court decision this week denying a religious charter school, State Superintendent Ryan Walters doubled down by requiring all Oklahoma educators to teach the Bible effective immediately.
This Supreme Court has made some horrendous decisions. This is one of the worst.
This week, the Oklahoma Supreme Court ruled the Oklahoma State Department of Education must end its contract with St. Isidore, stating it is unconstitutional. It would be the nation's first religious charter school.
This would have been the most unique charter school in the country. So I want you all to know we will continue to fight back against this.
Fighting this, State Superintendent Ryan Walters is not. The Supreme Court denied his request to be a part of the lawsuit last November. Just days after the ruling, Walters issued a Bible mandate in all public schools.
We will be issuing a memo today that every school district will adhere to, which is that every teacher, every classroom in the state will have a Bible in the classroom and will be teaching from the Bible in the classroom.
Walters pointed to state statutes.
Under Title 70, multiple occasions, the Bible is a necessary historical document.
Enforcement is too early to tell. While Walters has passed controversial emergency rules, he has also said he will require the Ten Commandments in class, enforce prayer, and require religious training for teachers. That has not happened.
That is a report from KJRH and Aaron. What's the last name there? Aaron Christie. So thanks for that. Now, Mr. Walters also went on to say that the Bible is one of the most historically significant books and a cornerstone of Western civilization, along with the Ten Commandments, saying that they will be referenced as an appropriate study of history, civilization, ethics, comparative religion, or the like, as well as for their substantial influence on our nation's founders and the foundational principles of our Constitution. And he wrote that in a memorandum to schools that says the Bible must be a part of the curriculum for students in 5th through 12th grades. And, of course, he's getting some backlash on that. So I want to get some reaction to this because this is a big deal, right? I'm born in Brooklyn, live in Jersey now, and rarely do you hear something like this happening in this neck of the woods. So Chuck Stetson is the CEO of Essentials in Education, which is the parent company of the Bible Literacy Project. And he's our guest. Chuck Stetson, welcome, sir.
Well, good to be with you, Rich.
Thank you, sir. Now, let's dig into this. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on this recent mandate by Ryan Walters.
Well, overall, Superintendent Ryan Walters is on the right track. Public schools need to teach the Bible. It can be done, but it needs to be done correctly. What we found in a survey that we did, or we had commissioned with the Gallup organization, was that young people, 13 to 18, have very little idea of what's in the Bible, and they only kind of nominally know about the basic meanings of Judeo-Christian terms like Easter and Adam and Eve and the like. Substantial minorities lack even the most basic working knowledge of the Bible, and only a minority of American teens appear to be Bible literate, reaching the level of knowledge similar to that defined by high school English teachers as necessary to good education. And we've got to change that. And we've reached out to Superintendent Ryan Walters about this mandate, about how, and our thoughts on how it can best work in public schools. The only concern that we have is that we're the only Bible curriculum that we know of that is First Amendment safe and meets those standards, and that other Bible curriculum could pose legal threats.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about that, because it sounds to me like what I've read from his statement, he's not necessarily looking to have a government-endorsed religion, nor is he really looking to teach Christianity per se, but he's looking to teach Christianity as part of the instruction of other world religions because of its influence on the founders and whatnot. So when you say that your curriculum is First Amendment safe, tell us how that works.
Well, one of the things that we did as we started the Bible Literacy Project was that we knew that in 1963 in Abington versus Shemp, the U.S. Supreme Court said you cannot teach the Bible religiously on its own in the public schools, but you can teach it on its own in terms of the culture. And so we contacted the First Amendment Center, and between the First Amendment Center and the Bible Literacy Project, we produced the Bible and Public Schools, a First Amendment Guide, endorsed by the two major teachers unions, the American Federation of Teachers, the National Education Association, the National School Boards Association, and others. And so we developed the guidelines, which has the details of how you do this correctly, and it's broadly been endorsed. And in fact, just after we brought it out, the U.S. Department of Education decided to distribute this guide to all public schools in America, not only once, but twice in the early 2000s.
All right. Now, if people want to learn more about the Bible Literacy Project, where do they go?
To our website at www.bibleliteracy.org, not comment, .org, bibleliteracy.org.
Outstanding. Well, I want to thank you for being with us, Chuck Stetson. And folks, straight ahead, we're going to continue our conversation on what's going on. Joy Reid says that it's better to have Biden in a coma than to have Donald Trump. More on that straight ahead, plus your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Just let me know when you guys are finished figuring it out, Democrats, because I know y'all the freak out people. Go ahead and freak out, have your conversation, and then let me know who I got to vote for to keep Hitler out the White House. That's it. I'm done. Oh, and by the way, if it's Biden in a coma, I'm going to vote for Biden in a coma. I don't even really particularly like the guy. A lot of his policy, don't like him. He's not Donald Trump, right? Yeah. Hitler, White House. We keeping him out, keeping Project 2025 out. That's all I care about. Up and down the ballot, from the rooter to the tutor, school board, all the way up to White House and everything in between.
So there we have it. We've got Joy Reid from MSNBC saying she'd prefer to have Biden in a coma than Trump at full faculty, right? It just goes to show you the, how deep the disdain is. And that's on both sides, right? Because honestly, I would probably take Donald Trump with a head injury, God forbid, over Joe Biden in the current state of affairs that we have. So I think the jury is out and they've decided. Everybody knows exactly who they're voting for, especially if we look at the New York Times survey that just came out. But as we get to your calls that are coming in right now, I want to get some reaction to everything we were talking about tonight. Let's go to Joshua in Topeka, Kansas on KMAJ, the Big Talker, 1440, 93.5. Joshua, go right ahead.
Hey, Rick. Pleasure to be on your show. I'm a first-time caller.
Welcome.
On the topic of Christian values, I absolutely believe that they belong in schools because if you look at the problems society's facing today with a rising suicide rate and young people not really lacking for direction in their life, then, I mean, as long as those Christian values are truly good Christian values and not some sort of antagonism against evolution or things we know to be scientifically true. Like, I was playing games earlier with a friend, and he said that he thinks Christians kind of become like a dirty word these days, and people associate it with perhaps a rough upbringing. But, I mean, Jesus
who's making that assumption? Who's making the assumption that Christians are associated with a rough upbringing?
Well, just because sometimes parents can be overwhelmed.
No, it's a very simple question, Joshua. I said, who is making that assumption?
Oh, probably a lot of Democrats. Probably.
You're the one making the statement. If I say the sky is blue and you say, Rich, why do you say the sky is blue? And I go, probably, I'm going to sound like a big idiot, right? I'm asking you one more time. Who's making this presumption?
I am, I guess.
Why are you guessing? Don't you know anything for sure? As a matter of fact, can you stand on your business and just answer a question like a man? You couldn't even answer that one with a yes or no. Joshua, I'm very concerned with you. It seems like you don't know if you're coming or going.
Okay.
You also said that evolution is scientifically proven and that there was some debate over that. I think there's plenty of debate over that, no?
Not really.
Oh, no? What was it that Darwin said before he passed away about evolution and about Christianity?
I think there's some talk that he thought it was all made up, or he just made it up. Is that what he said?
Okay, so that would be someone casting doubt, in particular the person that said that fish created cows and fish created dinosaurs and fish created everything. So I don't know. It really sounds like you didn't put a lot of thought into your phone call. It really sounds like you're embarrassing yourself in front of millions and millions and millions of people. But I do appreciate you listening, Joshua. Big shout out to everybody on KMAJ. And hope you'll call in again and do some homework next time. Let's continue. I want to go to Al, Atlanta, Georgia, WGKA. Go right ahead, Al.
Hey, how you doing?
Wonderful, thank you.
I think, is there not anybody else?
All right, Al, we're going to put you on hold and get you off speaker. Our call screener should be getting people prepped to get on the line. Let's go to Frank in Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Go right ahead, Frank.
I think this is a matter of simple logic. Morality comes from religion. That's where our morals come from. For example, thou shalt not kill. We all believe we should not kill, but why do we believe that? Because it's in the Ten Commandments. There's no real logical reason why you shouldn't kill if you don't believe in God or if you don't have a religious background. So the point I'm trying to make is we ought to have enough religion. We ought to teach the religious background of morality. You don't have to believe in the religion, but you believe in what the religion has taught us, that it's the best way to live together.
Yeah, I agree with you, Frank. I guess the exception, and it's not really an exception, but I guess the idea behind it is that there's a universality of morality, right? And I think that's what you're alluding to, where you can be a godless person, you can be an atheistic, agnostic, whatever, a deist even, but let's just say there is no God from the perspective that one has, and still believe that people have a right to live, not because they are merely a creation of this God that I believe in and they might not, but moreover that just people in and of themselves have this right to exist. So I'm with you. I think that the right to life is obviously something that comes from God, and that's why it's wrong for me to take someone else's life or in the form of murder. So totally with you. Teaching the universal truths that go along with the Ten Commandments by way of teaching them as morality make all the sense in the world. And I think this is why it's been the basis for our legal system. I think this is why it is the, outside of so many different courtrooms in America, because it's literally the truth. And I think it's these universal truths that people agree on all over the world, pretty much. I don't think there's any country where the majority of the people think we should kill other people or we should steal other people's property. I don't think that's a thing anywhere. I think that's universally accepted, irrespective of religion. So I think you're 100% right on that one. Big shout out to Frank in Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. All right, let's see. Do we have time? Let's try to go back to Al in Atlanta. Hopefully we got the phone sorted out. Al, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something?
Is anybody else? Yes. Is anyone else going to run besides Trump and Biden?
Well, no. You got choices. Bobby Kennedy is running. He was on this show. He's running as an independent. He's on the ballot in a number of states, so he's running as an independent. I think I forget her name. I should know it by now. She runs every year. Perennial Green Party candidate. I want to say Jill Stein. I think she's on the ballot in a number of states. So not major candidates like the Democrat or Republican nominee, but I think that's what it boils down to. And that's where the strength in the American body politic lies with these two parties. So I get what you're saying. It would be nice to see someone else, but I think that time has come and gone where people had a chance to throw their hat in the ring. Now it comes down to that. And if there is a push for an independent candidate, there's the option of Bobby Kennedy Jr. So we'll see how it goes. Al in Atlanta, Georgia, thank you for your call, my friend. I appreciate you fixing your phone as well so the country can hear you well. Big shout out to you. All right, folks, we come back with your calls and more, plus some conversation on what's going on with these whistleblowers at that Texas Children's Hospital and all that trans medicine, blah, 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 blah. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And a couple of weeks ago, we spoke with a doctor and a reporter about this issue, and we talk about it often, about gender-affirming care, this euphemism that's been created to soften the blow of mutilating the genitals of minor children who feel confused about their sexuality and want to change their gender and have these sex change operations, or less evasive, to take puberty blockers or hormones to achieve their desired result. And a doctor recently spoke out about that at Texas Children's Hospital, and this whistleblower got torn to shreds, right? They've really come after him. And we spoke a little bit about that last week or so, and I want to dig back into that, because to me, this is probably the real civil rights issue of our time, is allowing people to be who they really are. And I don't mean who they feel like they are. I mean who they actually really are. And especially to protect children in their innocence, in their minor child status. You know, let them be 18 and then figure out what they want to do. But I don't think we should be doing this to kids. My opinion, maybe it's controversial. So I want to get an update on what's going on with the whistleblower from the Texas Children's Hospital from our guest, Maddie Rowley. She is with Manhattan Institute. She's the Logos Fellow and an investigative reporter. Maddie, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Rich. I'm happy to be here.
Likewise, I'm happy that you're here. Tell me a little bit about what's going on here. I know we've seen a lot happen with the Texas Supreme Court getting involved and upholding a ban on gender-affirming care for trans minors, which I think is a very big deal. It should be the case everywhere, but tell us more.
Yeah, so that's correct. Texas Supreme Court concluded that, where they upheld the ban on gender-affirming care for transgender minors, they concluded that the legislator made a rational policy choice to limit the types of medical procedures for children. And I think this is exactly correct. We now have reports out there, including something called the WPATH files. That is stands for an organization called the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. And these files show that doctors who belong to the WPATH organization are essentially building the plane as they go when it comes to transgender medical procedures on children, which is so scary. Michael Schellenberger is the one who is a journalist who published these files. And if you look at these files, I mean, it's scary. It's abhorrent, to say the least. These doctors are experimenting on children, as you've said. And we also have another report called the CAS review, which proved that, you know, children who experience gender dysphoria, it's often due to an underlying psychological issue. And so you have many countries such as Finland, Sweden, France, rolling back their gender-affirming care treatments and procedures on children. And yet we have, you know, America is still, you know, blazing forward in some states with these treatments. And that is what whistleblower Dr. Heim proved. He bravely reached out to journalist Christopher Rufo, and he provided documents showing that even though in March of 2022, Texas Children's Hospital had announced they halted their gender-affirming care treatments for minor patients, these documents prove that, in fact, they did not halt their gender-affirming care treatments and were continuing to provide, continuing to implant puberty blockers into kids, as well as prescribing hormone replacement pills to kids. And as you probably know, these are two procedures that permanently damage children, often leaving it so that they can never have kids. And, you know, I spoke to several detransitioners in the past who have permanent, you know, low voices from being on testosterone. It's really ruined these children's lives, and the Texas Supreme Court was exactly right to uphold SB 14.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is these guys are all doing amazing work, very intrepid reporting. that I think is very valuable, very important on the front lines of this issue. And in many ways, I think leading it for the nation to see, with now having this state Supreme Court upholding a ban on gender-affirming care. Do you think that this ripples across the nation? And I realize it varies by state and, the values of each state and the political makeup of each state. But it seems to me right has to be right and wrong has to be wrong. And we shouldn't be that far apart on what's right and wrong state by state. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think we're going to start to see this more and more. I mean, there are already 25 states who have laws that ban certain treatments for minor-aged children when it comes to quote-unquote gender-affirming care. So, we have these laws in 25 states already, but I think the ban, the Texas Supreme Court upholding this ban is going to set the precedent for other states to follow suit, especially as we're seeing more detransitioners come out suing the doctors who perform these procedures on them. Again, I spoke to dozens of mostly girls who have, their doctors perform mastectomies on them. And they, again, have the permanent deep voice from being on testosterone. And several of them have now turned around and sued the doctors for performing these procedures on them as minors. And I think that's something that we are also going to see more of is these detransitioners, these children, many of whom are now adults, who are suing the doctors that did this to them. And I think that is, I hope more detransitioners continue to do so.
Well, we'll take a pause right there. Folks, we're just getting started on this conversation, and it's an important one regarding what's going on with the Texas Children's Hospital whistleblower case, and looks like it's going in the right direction. Our guest is Maddie Rowley from the Manhattan Institute. She's the Logos Fellow and an investigative reporter, and we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our discussion with Maddie Rowley from the Manhattan Institute about this very big deal coming out of Texas with the Texas Children's Hospital controversy that you'd heard about, where they said, we're not going to do this, and they went ahead and did it anyway. And which is why I think they got the legislature to step in, and I think that's why the Supreme Court upheld what the legislature proposed, because I think everybody agreed this was necessary. Maddie Rowley, I'm looking at a quote from an article in the Sentinel that says, we conclude the legislature made a permissible, rational policy choice to limit the types of available medical procedures for children, particularly in light of the relative nascency of both gender dysphoria and its various modes of treatment, and the legislature's express constitutional authority to regulate the practice of medicine. And I thought that makes all the sense in the world. Yet it seems like so many other legislatures and or courts aren't on the same page. And the bigger question, again, it's kind of a different version of what we talked about in the last segment, which is how do we like legitimately have court cases over why it's wrong to allow children to make these seemingly unilateral choices with their bodies?
Well, I think a lot of that pressure is obviously coming from the left. I could point to, and I think the media drives a lot of it as well. I mean, I could point to, recently we have Admiral Rachel Levine, real name Richard, the Assistant Secretary for Health at the Department of Health and Human Services, who feared that the WPATH guidelines for minimum age treatments for gender-affirming care for minors, he was afraid that children would have trouble accessing care if they were transgender. So he asked WPATH to remove these minimum age guidelines. It was 14 years old for hormone treatment, 15 for mastectomies, 16 for breast augmentation, and so on and so forth. And so the WPATH, this group of doctors, this group of international doctors, acquiesced to her request. And that's just, this is not based in science whatsoever. We have Admiral Rachel Levine asking them to remove these guidelines for health care, and they agreed to do so. So this is not based in science whatsoever. And I think, again, I think we're going to see a lot more bans on gender-affirming care as time goes on. But I think that there are a lot of groups and a lot of figureheads that push this myth that has been disproven recently in a Finnish survey. Like I said, gender dysphoria is often caused in children by underlying psychological issues, as well as a social contagion. So, this is pushed by left-wing groups. But I think, again, as I've said in previous interviews, I do think that the tides are changing, and we are seeing that in the courts now.
The study from Finland, I want you to unpack that a little bit for us, because I remember that coming out in the last several months, or at least I read about it in the last several months, and I thought, wow, I can't believe we're reading a study on that. I thought everybody knew that this was the case, but, that's probably me being presumptuous. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so this Finnish study just found that, cross-sex hormones and gender transition surgeries to minors and even young adults didn't have any effect on suicides. We hear often, proponents of gender-affirming care for minors say that, well, and again, this is very apparent in the many detransitioners I've spoken to. Their doctors tell them and their parents, this is important, they tell their parents, would you rather have a child who, would you rather have a daughter who is alive, or would you rather have, your child commit suicide? So that's how they often push starting hormone therapy treatment, puberty blockers, etc., is they push the myth that your child is more likely to commit suicide if they don't start transitioning. And this Finnish study basically found that this isn't the case at all, and that hormones and gender transition surgeries really have no significant effect on suicides, and that suicides are more linked in youth with transgender dysphoria, are more linked to these underlying psychological issues that the children have. So basically, again, doctors, which is scary, healthcare experts, they're supposed to be, are pushing a myth that just simply is not true.
Outstanding. I think you're 100% right, and I wish we had more of this information available. We're going to continue our conversation straight ahead. Folks, I want to give you the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES is the phone number. We're on with Maddie Rowley. She is the Manhattan Institute Logos Fellow. She's also an investigative reporter, and we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Over the weekend, I saw a clip from Bill Maher's, I don't know if it's a podcast on video or a TV program he has, but he was taking an opinion that typically Bill Maher and his friends on the left don't typically take. Listen to this.
We're literally experimenting on children. Maybe that's why Sweden and Finland have stopped giving puberty blockers to kids. We do know it hinders the development of bone density, which is kind of important if you like having a skeleton. Fertility and the ability to have an orgasm seem also to be affected. This isn't just a lifestyle decision, it's medical. Weighing trade-offs is not bigotry.
Again, that's Bill Maher saying this is not bigotry. But the question is, why is this happening in Finland and Sweden and not in the United States? Could it be because those that dissent are being suppressed? I want to get back to our guest, Maddie Rowley, who is with the Manhattan Institute. And in their publication, City Journal, she's got an excellent piece about the Justice Department trying to silence and imprison whistleblowers who expose the barbarism of transgender medicine. Maddie Rowley, in the time we have left, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about your piece and your thoughts on that overall.
Sure. Yeah. So my piece basically covers the story of Dr. Heim, who, like I said, he gave documents to journalist Christopher Rufo, who published an article in May of 2023 disclosing that Texas Children's Hospital was continuing to perform these gender-affirming care treatments to minors. And then we have June of 2023, federal agents from the Department of Health and Human Services come knocking on Dr. Heim's door, telling him he was a potential target of an investigation involving alleged violations of HIPAA. So we have that intimidation factor there. And in a January 2024 article, Dr. Heim revealed his identity as the whistleblower in a follow-up article. And this is important. In this article, he says he felt it was his moral responsibility to speak out and that he was following his Hippocratic oath to do no harm. And I think it's important to point out here that we have prosecutors from the Department of Justice, Prosecutor Tina Ansari from the Southern District of Texas, who in the past has prosecuted cases involving doctors, scamming insurance out of millions, healthcare center workers, and in one case, a pharmacist scamming federal insurance companies out of $22 million. And so in these cases, these healthcare workers are clearly gaining a profit, whereas here we have Dr. Heim, who has no monetary gain here. He just feels like he is following his Hippocratic oath to do no harm. And yet, very quickly, the DOJ jumped on his case and indicted him in early June. And I think this really speaks to prosecutorial discretion here. I spoke to Dan Epstein from America's First Legal, who told me that it sets a terrible precedent. And he said that the Texas Attorney General's office had 6 months to move on Dr. Heim, and they chose not to. And yet we have the DOJ who is making a move here to indict Dr. Heim on 4 counts. So I don't see how this is anything other than weaponization, trying to silence a whistleblower just because he spoke out on an issue that we know, the Biden administration has backed and continuously spoken out in favor of when it comes to, in the past, transgender affirming care for minors. So I think this is they're trying to silence whistleblowers and any future whistleblowers, and it sets a very dangerous precedent.
Yeah, and what's interesting is it seems like this is what they want. Even the federal prosecutor, the assistant U.S. attorney, Tina Ansari, she admits that she hadn't reviewed the alleged evidence against Dr. Heim and was just relying on what the FBI agents told her. It lets me know they're putting the cart before the horse here.
Exactly. And it also shows that this is like, as Biden has said in the press, a whole of government approach. We have the FBI and the DOJ clearly working in tandem on this. It sounds to me like the FBI was telling verbally, I'm sorry, about the alleged evidence against Dr. Heim. And like you said, she hadn't even reviewed the evidence in discussions with his lawyers. So very scary stuff.
Unbelievable. I want to thank you for being with us tonight. Maddie, let everybody know how they can find you.
Absolutely. Please follow me on Twitter. I'm at Maddie_Rowley_.
Outstanding. Folks, Thank you, Maddie Rowley. We're coming right back with Open Phone America. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Thanks for being with us tonight. If you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, feel free to give us a call, 482-5337. That's 833-482-5337 or 833-4-VALDEZ. If you're streaming us at richvaldez.com, welcome to the program. Of course, a big welcome to all of our affiliates as well, carrying us live. If you're carrying us on delay, we give you a shout out just the same. Just not as easy for your folks to call in, but hopefully they do give us a call. And lots to talk about. We've talked tonight about Joe Biden's cognitive abilities, spent a considerable amount of time on that early in the program as thehill.com, has reported the, let's see, 8 visits by Parkinson's specialist, a neurologist, who has visited the White House. This is a big deal. Of course, Karine Jean-Pierre was all taken aback. She was very angry with the reporter who was pushing back on her. And then she doubled down and really beat up on this reporter. Listen to cut number 9.
I just want to take a step back for a second, because I do take offense to what Ed alluded to. You know, come out here, every day there's a press briefing, and we do our best to give you the information that we have at the time. That's what we do. And we understand that the freedom of the press, we respect the freedom of the press. You heard me talk about this last week. I appreciate the back and forth that we all have. I try to respect you, and I hope you try to respect me. And we literally do everything that we can. My team does everything that we can to make sure we get
blah, 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 blah,
the
blah,
answers.
blah. Karine Jean-Pierre just, somebody break out a violin for this woman. Come on. She's all bent out of shape, trying to use this calm demeanor, kind of like when you call customer service and people disrespect you, but they do it by saying ma'am or sir, and they think that they're somehow less disrespectful if they, try being rude, but calling you ma'am or sir at the same time. She was clearly patronizing Ed O'Keefe from CBS News in the clip we played earlier. And Biden's been making the rounds, trying to save face. He's got all his friends in media like Joe Scarborough and others trying to come out and say, no, he's doing fantastic. And cut 24, we've got Joe Scarborough making multiple statements since March of this year that Biden's very cogent. He's up to the task. He's beyond cogent. Listen to this.
But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. This is a battle for the future of American democracy. And now is a good time. In June, thank God, in June, and not October, in June, this is the last chance for Democrats to decide whether this man we've known and loved for a very long time is up to the task. As for the rest of us, and that's Democrats, that's independents, that's Republicans of good faith. Let's be smart. Let's take a deep breath, and let's understand it's only July the 5th. Such an historic decision should not be made in haste.
Again, that's Joe Scarborough talking about his buddy, his hero, Joe El Baboso Biden, over the weekend. And it seems that everybody's trying to come out and say that Joe Biden is doing great. In fact, even General Mark Milley was on 60 Minutes quite a while back, still saying, look, this man is alert. He is sound. Listen to this.
I meet frequently with the president, and every single time I meet with him, he is just fine. How people interpret that is up to them, but I engage with him frequently and alert, sound, does his homework, reads the papers, reads all the read-ahead material, and is very, very engaging in issues of very serious matters of war and peace and life and death. So if the American people are worried about an individual who is, someone who's making decisions of war and peace and has access to, makes the decisions of nuclear weapons and that sort of thing, I think they can rest easy.
They can rest easy. Look at the New York Times poll. It's got Trump winning. Clearly, the American people are not resting easy. Clearly, the American people know that you're a fake, a phony, and a fraud, General Milley. Everybody saw what happened on the debate stage. And it wasn't taken out of context. It wasn't a deep fake. It wasn't what people have seen that they think are edited clips on their Instagram feed or their TikTok feed or their Facebook feed. This was people watching the debate, and they saw for themselves this man was lost, right? I mean, everywhere I went in the days following the event, people who know that I do this commentary for a living were telling me, really, look, I like Biden, and I want to see him win, but when he said all that gibberish and Trump said, I don't understand what he said. I don't think he understands what he said. They said that's when I knew Trump was going to become president and Biden had just, I'm going to say figuratively bought the farm, right? He's checked out because while it was a bad day, like Biden said, it was a bad day. Come on, man. Yeah, listen, you're not allowed to have a bad day when you're president. That's the reality. People don't want people that are going to have a bad day and think it's okay to say they're having a bad day. People are holding the president to a higher standard. They might say, all right, a bad day, you get caught with an intern. A bad day, you lose your stack and you yell at somebody. But not this. Not, I forget what I'm saying. I forget who I am. We're going to protect the audio of the Hur interview, special counsel Hur, H-U-R, because we don't want you to hear what he sounded like. Many are speculating that it's very clear that when he asks some questions, how badly it sounds, that you can't really get the context of it from the transcript, which has been released, because once you actually hear it, it's like, wow, that's brutal. So I think this is why they're protecting Biden, so that this doesn't get released and it doesn't make its way into a campaign ad for people to really see what's going on with Joe Biden and make a choice for themselves, right? This is election interference, if you would. So that's where it is. But even CNN is aware of what's going on. Harry Enton today says that the polls that are underestimating Joe Biden last time around and are still underestimating him, this idea doesn't hold any water. He's being estimated correctly, according to Harry Enton. Listen to this.
So I just want to point out where the polls are now, where they were at this point back in 2020, and Joe Biden's worst position in the polls back in 2020. Right now, Donald Trump leads in an aggregate of national polls by about 3 percentage points. If you go back 4 years ago at this point, Joe Biden was ahead by 9 points. This right now don't look anything like what we saw 4 years ago at this point. I then decided to take it a step further. What was Biden's worst 2020 polling position? He was ahead by 4 points, which basically matched what he ended up beating Donald Trump by in the national popular vote. So this 3-point advantage for Donald Trump is Donald Trump's best position versus Joe Biden, whether you include the polls this year or you include the polls last cycle. The idea that the polls underestimated Joe Biden last time around, simply put, does not hold any water.
That's Harry Enton from CNN. Soon they're going to be saying Harry Enton, conservative shill, on the take for Donald Trump, because every time he has something to say, the numbers never go in Biden's favor. Even the New York Times numbers today show Biden losing if the election were held today. So I want to get to your calls and more straight ahead. We've got calls on hold already. I see calls from Delaware, Oregon, Idaho, Florida, Montana, South Carolina, and more coming in. The phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
For all the talk out there about this race, Joe has made it clear that he's all in. Decision that he's made, and just as he has always supported my career, I am all in too.
That, of course, is Jill Biden, also known as Dr. Jill Biden, the brains behind Weekend at Bernie's Joe El Baboso Biden. And she's all in on the re-election of her husband's campaign for 2024. And good for her, she should be. But I don't know that Joe Biden is all in on his own campaign. He was all over the place. Now, there's a radio interview that he did on WURD in Philadelphia where he accidentally says that he is the first black woman to serve in the White House. Listen to this.
By the way, I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman to serve with a black president. I'm proud of the first black woman in the Supreme Court. There's just so much that we can do because together there's nothing. Look, this is the United States of America.
That's right. So Biden is now the first black woman to serve in the White House. And congratulations to him for that. He also says he's going to beat Trump in 2020. So I wish him luck with that. I'll take betting odds on that one. And all that clip you just heard, that WURD interview, was with a radio host. And this is a radio host named Andrea Lawful Sanders. Now, she's the one that came forward and said that the White House sent her questions in advance to use for this interview with Biden. And after she admitted that she had been given the questions and that this was not a free-flowing conversation of ideas, but a rehearsed one, well, guess what? They fired her from her radio job. Listen to this.
Andrea, let me ask you here about your interviews and something. I listened to both of them, and there's something that's similar here. You each were, you asked 4 questions, and maybe that's what you were allowed to ask by the campaign or the White House. But they were essentially the same questions, both interviews, about accomplishments, progress in your respective state, what's at stake in the election, what he has to say about his debate performance, and what he would say to voters who think their vote doesn't matter or might sit this election out. Were those questions given to you by the White House, or did you have, or the campaign, or did you have to submit questions ahead of this interview?
The questions were sent to me for approval. I approved of them.
Okay, so the White House sent the questions to you ahead of the interview?
Yes.
Okay.
I got several questions, 8 of them, and the 4 that were chosen were the ones that I approved.
So again, this woman was fired, seemingly, for telling the world that this was not, again, just a random discussion. Like me, I don't have any prepared questions. Maybe that's not a good thing. I mean, every now and again, I might jot something down if I know I'm speaking with so-and-so at 10:15, 10:30, at 11 o'clock, whatever. There's a few things I want to know. But for the most part, it's a conversation, right? If you bump into somebody at the grocery store, the bodega, if you will, you don't really bust out a sheet of paper or a legal pad and say, hey, Jose, how are you? How's your mom? How's your abuela doing? How's the whole family? right? You just talk. You talk and you have an idea and you go, oh, wow, what's up with the World Cup? I heard Colombia was doing it. I heard Argentina was kicking butt. By the way, what do you think about that debate the other day? Wow, Biden looks terrible. Ay, bendito, right? And you get into this whole back and forth about what's going on, right? And that's really how I try to do it here. I have a couple of bullet points that I want to remember to cover, but if the conversation goes in a different direction, we go there, right? Because that's what a conversation's all about. And that's what kind of hopefully makes it genuine to you all, the listeners. But when you have these questions, and people, when they're selling a book or whatever, they'll submit sample questions that they want you to ask them. So they sound really smart when they're answering those questions because they're prepared for them. But I rarely take the bait on those things. Every now and again I might, if they're relevant. But for the most part, I know what I want to ask people because it's just my inquisitive nature. And based on what we're talking about in this volley of ideas. But not Joel Barroso Biden, leader of the free world. He decides, no. It's important that I send you the questions, and you can only ask me these approved questions. I got to tell you, just imagine if Trump did that. Imagine the hot water he'd be in. Just imagine. I couldn't even imagine it. I think people would just be like, oh, unbelievable. He's a dictator. He's this, he's that. He's stupid. He's blah, blah, blah. Just incredibly unfair. Anyway, let's hit the phones here. We got a few people that have been on hold, and I want to get to you. I want to get your reaction to what's happening. Does Biden run? Does he not run? Does he survive? Let's go to Doc, Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL. Doc, go right ahead.
I've been watching this guy since I was 18 years old. I'm 70. In 1972. Okay.
That's right, because in Wilmington, Delaware, Joe Biden's like your neighbor.
Yeah, he is, and I can tell you something. He is going to be dragged kicking and screaming from this job. Here's what's going to happen, Rich. Mm-hmm. The elders of the party, with some very, very big, and I mean big-time donors from Wall Street, are going to have a meeting with Joe Biden and tell him resign, or else we're going to do the 25th Amendment. He's going to resign in a national TV address. He'll spare statesmanlike. The coda to all this is that he and Jill and Kamala Harris are going to be given major packages from Wall Street to take a walk. Okay, and these same party elders are going to say, we do not want a raucous convention like '68. We don't want riots in Chicago. We want a cool, calm convention. I don't think that's going to happen for two reasons: BLM and the AOC wing of the party. Thirdly, the third force to reckon with is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I want to get one point of clarification from you, Doc. So you think Kamala takes over, and who does she pick as her vice president?
I think Kamala's going to be paid off to take a walk.
I see. Here's the issue I have with that, Doc. They've got $250 million. And that, as far as I know, and I don't know a bunch. We'd probably have to get like Brendan Carr or somebody from the FEC on to clarify that. But I believe the war chest is for Harris Biden. I don't know that they can just hand that over to somebody else. Maybe they can. I don't know. So to me, it makes the most sense that they hold on to Harris at least, and that she picks somebody. I could be wrong. I don't know. It's actually a good question that you raised here, so I can figure out the answer, or at least find a guest to give us a more complex answer on it. But I agree with you. I think that they push him out. I honestly thought it was going to happen today. And I guess he probably thought it was going to happen today, too. And that's why he doubled down on TV saying, I'm not going anywhere. I got hairy legs, or whatever he had to say. So I think that's my thought there. But I want to get back to the calls. We're going to get back to your calls momentarily. 833-482-5337. Looking forward to speaking with Monica, Paul, Walter, Frank, Bill, Patrick, Chad, and I got another line flashing, one line open. So if you want to join the conversation, feel free, 833-482-5337. Also, we're going to get into some other news when we come back, so keep it locked right here. I am Rich Valdez. We're coming right back. It's Open Phone America on America at Night.
Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
We're literally experimenting on children. Maybe that's why Sweden and Finland have stopped giving puberty blockers to kids. We do know it hinders the development of bone density, which is kind of important if you like having a skeleton. Fertility and the ability to have an orgasm seem also to be affected. This isn't just a lifestyle decision, it's medical. Weighing trade-offs is not bigotry.
It's not bigotry. That's Bill Maher again, replaying that clip of Bill Maher saying that Sweden and Finland have stopped giving puberty blockers to kids that are seeking what they call gender-affirming care. So I want to go to Monica, Pendleton, Oregon, listening on KUMA. Monica, go right ahead. Welcome.
Hi, how are you doing this evening?
Wonderful, thank you.
Excellent. Well, hey, 2 points and observations I've, like to touch on.
Sure.
As far as the whole gender reaffirming, whatever, you know, when I was a kid, I would dress up like a boy. I had alter egos, as a boy and act out as such. So it was no big deal. And then, when I was 17, I visited my friend over in Germany. Well, her younger brother would like to dress up like a girl occasionally. So the parents would go take him out of town, let him, do like a dress up or a try on, if you will, so that he didn't have to worry about his friends getting on him or anything like that. It was just no big deal. So personally, yeah, I'm against, puberty blockers as well, because I think it's very detrimental to children. And I have my 15-year-old daughter here with me, and she agrees as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's very interesting, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you want to say anything, hon? Yeah. This is Willow. She's 15. She would like to speak real quick. Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, so when I forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay. Okay.
About when I wear tuxedos, I want a whole collection of tuxedos in my closet, and yeah, that's kind of it.
Well, that's fine, but we're not going to go to the surgical level. Heck no. Anyhow.
Right, and I think, Monica, what I sense you saying is that when you were growing up, you were tomboyish, and I think a lot of people go through phases like that where they don't necessarily go and have surgical intervention or even hormones or puberty blockers so that it stops you from being whatever, because people eventually grow up and they decide, you know what, I'm going to go on and have a child and do what I'm going to do. And you lose that opportunity if they, change your actual parts or even change your hormones.
Right. You're absolutely right. I agree. I went through those phases, but, I'm all girl. I have a beautiful, healthy 15-year-old, and then I've explained to her a lot of things, and we're quite connected. And also,
Good.
I want to touch on.
Yeah.
I did go ahead and watch the debate, and I have been in the healthcare field for 20 years, off and on. The first thing I noticed about Mr. Biden was his gait. He was slumped over, he looked confused, and he barely made it to the podium. And I've had to take care of my father, who also he presented roughly the same. And usually when they are infected with that, with the dementia, they do start to get angry, very defensive, and very hard to live with. And we don't.
Yeah, I actually went through the same thing with my dad. And honestly, when I see Biden, sometimes when he's doing that shuffling where he barely moves his feet, when he's got that stooped posture and kind of like a very uneasy, unstable gait, I literally, I remember my dad walking like that, and that's not how my dad walked. And it was because of traumatic brain injury related dementia. And he just was, he just wasn't who he once was. And when I see Biden doing those same things, even certain mannerisms, the sundowning, all of it, it's sad. And it leads me to believe that we just can't we can't have Biden. We just can't. Somebody literally needs to 25th Amendment him quickly so that we are just honestly living up to our constitutional responsibility. But Monica, thank you. I want to give a shout out to you and your daughter, your 15-year-old daughter, Pendleton, Oregon, KUMA. Let us go to Gainesville, Georgia, WDUN, and check in with Ron. Ron, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Basically, with the trans situation, part of that study on suicide that was not talked about was the fact that after somebody that's presenting as trans has the complete surgery, does the whole changeover, 3 to 5 years out, they are 17 times more likely to suicide. Mm-hmm. And one of the main reasons for that is within this model that we're using for doing this to these kids and young adults, they're not doing any psychological workups. They're not addressing any of the mental health issues that are driving this. And they go through all this trouble. They hack off body parts. They take all these hormones. And 3 to 5 years out, they're still the messed up human being that they were before they did all that. So they decide, hey, the best way to do it is leave town, 86 themselves.
Yeah,
and
I think you're right.
That's a sad commentary on where we're at. I have a daughter that is she has very little contact with me, but what I do know is that a doctor in California is scripting her testosterone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which is a level class 3 controlled substance. You or I could not get it without going to a doctor and extensive testing. And this guy in California is just putting it in the mail to her. And I ask doctors all the time, any doctor I come in contact with, I ask them, when is it medically appropriate to give a female synthetic testosterone? And it's amazing how they hem and haw and will not give you a direct answer. The correct answer is it's never medically appropriate to give a female male hormones. And,
yeah, well, I've seen some instances, Ron, where women do have some level of testosterone in them, and if it's off, an endocrinologist might treat them with hormone replacement therapy, and but not to make them into a man, to make them a balanced, functioning female. So I know that I've seen that because I actually saw an interview with a cardiologist who had a problem with his wife, and turned out he was trying to diagnose her with everything under the sun, and it turned out that her testosterone level was too low, and a small adjustment in testosterone, it balanced out whatever, it slowed down her estrogen production, and she was able to be healthy again. So I know that does exist from a medical perspective, but I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. And the reality is it's hard for many people to get it, but not hard for some people to get it because there's an agenda behind it. And my heart goes out to you. I'll keep your daughter in my prayers because I know this isn't easy for anybody. And I want to thank you for your call. Big shout out to Gainesville, Georgia, WDUN. Thanks for the call, Ron. I'm going to take a pause right here. Going to come back with your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
For the last several years, they have terrorized multiple South American countries. Police in the region say a Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua has victimized thousands through extortion, drug and human trafficking, kidnapping, and murder. And now U.S. law enforcement, including Customs and Border Protection and the FBI, say the gang has made their way into the country.
The FBI El Paso can confirm that members of Tren de Aragua have crossed into the United States.
Alvaro Bosa, a former Venezuelan police officer now living in Florida, says he fled his country in large part because the gang had become so powerful they could kill law enforcement like him with impunity. Bosa says a fellow police officer who refused to cooperate with the gang was shot 50 times.
He refused and was murdered. He tied his body to a motorcycle and dragged it throughout the San Vicente neighborhood.
Dragged him on a motorcycle. Who drags this guy's body on the Tren de Aragua, this violent Venezuelan gang that came out of the prisons in Venezuela and it's making its way into the United States, and they're here. Now, what's even worse is that they're here and they're making money, right? Fox News business correspondent Madison Allworth tells us exactly how much migrants are receiving in places like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Listen to this.
We wanted to show you just how much asylum seekers are getting in some of our biggest blue cities, starting right here in New York. If you're a migrant, you're guaranteed housing, some of them being placed in hotel rooms that average $300 a night. Then a number of those migrants qualify to be part of the $53 million debit card pilot program. That means they are handed $1,000 on a debit card each and every month. Add SNAP benefits on top of that, and we're talking an additional $1,400. In Los Angeles, migrants are given full coverage health insurance and soon could also get $1,000 a month through the city's new guaranteed income pilot program, which is immigration status blind. That means you could get it even if you're not here legally. And in Chicago, they so far have spent $300 million since 2023 on migrants. That's on things like food and even laundry. As part of that spending, it's going towards rental assistance.
So there you have it. You've got the reports. You know what's going on. We're seeing it. We've seen the increase in crime. We have a problem. Joe Biden's turned a blind eye because he's created the problem. I want to get reaction from Walter in St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Walter, very quickly, go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Greetings again, Rich. Good points tonight. I just want to tell you about a 1969 movie that shows just how hard Puerto Rican families had to work to live in the boroughs of New York City. And the movie's called Poppy, P-O-P-I, about a Puerto Rican widower. And it just shows how he had to bring up two teen boys in Spanish Harlem and the apartment with gates on the windows, extra locks on the doors, black and white TV that had no reception. And he had to work 3 jobs. And my grandparents came into Ellis Island, had to do the same thing. Today, the illegals are living, like the lady just said, for free in what used to be fine hotels in New York City. It's all because of Joe, I forget how you say it, whatever.
Joe El Baboso Biden.
Yeah, there you go. We call him boludo in Argentine. That means jerk. And anyway,
yeah, boludo.
It's him, and it's on our dimes, Joe. I'm sorry, Rich.
Yeah, I got you, Walter. Yeah, and thank you for that. And, you know, it's funny you say that. It's not very different than the way I grew up in the 1970s in New York City. And it's a different time, right? It's really a different time where back then public charge rules were in full effect. If you could not live in this country and you didn't have a sponsor to help you financially or a promise of employment, they didn't let you in the country. But yet here we are letting everybody in. And they're like, yeah, no, we'll give you this. We'll give you that. We'll print more money. We'll do this. We'll do that. This is ultimately going to contribute to more inflation and eventually the crashing of our economic system or our currency. Now, not going to happen overnight, but if this continues to go unchecked, it's like a burning, a fire in your kitchen. You have a fire in your kitchen, you could put it out. You could have a fire extinguisher, and put it out, and maybe it just makes a little smoke on your hood range, maybe your microwave, that's it. Something you can wipe down. Nothing, no major damage, right? Wipe off the backsplash. Or you can have a fire that really starts to crawl up the walls, catches the curtain, gets to the apartment upstairs, the whole building is on fire, and voila, you get burnt to a crisp. That's where we're at. Will we put this fire out, or are we going to let it burn us down? I don't know the answer. By the way, I remember my dad watching that movie from the late 1960s that took place in New York City, so I have a vague idea of what you're talking about because I remember it a little bit. Anyway, Walter, WFOY, St. Augustine, Florida, thank you for listening. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. And I want to, my screen froze, but I want to go to, there was a caller that wanted to talk about October surprises. Let's go to that caller. Tell me their name and their call letters, please. Patrick in Ventura, California, KVTA. Go right ahead.
Hey, George, can you hear me?
I don't know who you're talking to, sir.
Okay, this is Patrick in Ventura.
Who do you want to speak with?
With Mr. Valdez.
That's me. Go right ahead.
Okay. I got two comments and then something I'd like to point out. I hope I have time.
Sure.
I don't know if Biden's old or he's just doing an imitation of Tim Conway on the Carol Burnett show, playing the old guy.
I love the Carol Burnett show. Thank God for having old parents, right? My dad loved that show.
Also, I like the way you're controlling the show now. You're great. I listened to you over some others, and you're just taking care of callers like that one earlier, as you should.
Oh, well, thanks. I try. Every now and again, you got to, sometimes people try to do a sneak attack. I let everybody get everything out. And if you want to have a legitimate conversation, we have it. But if you want to try and pull a fast one on me, I have to pull a fast one on you. But what do you think that the surprise in October is going to be, Patrick?
Well, I'm not really positive. I just wanted to point out that there is an October surprise. Like in 1980, Carter didn't get the hostages released. He thought he would have them released in October, and that would be his. In 92 was the Contra scandal, and that was like the last straw for Bush.
Right. And if you fast forward, not to cut you off, but if you fast forward to 2020, right, it was the Hunter Biden laptop. That came out. It was a real surprise. And the biggest surprise was they said, no, the whole thing's fake, and they suppressed it. I just the other day was going through my Instagram account, and it said I had like a ding against me from then because they forced me to delete a news article that I had shared from the New York Post about the laptop. That's still considered fake news. And it's just remarkable at how they handle things. But that's the world that we're in. Patrick in Ventura, California, KTVA. I want to thank you so much for calling into the show tonight. I encourage you to call back in again. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez with you for another few minutes till it's 1 a.m. Eastern time. Let's go to Chad, Rapid City, South Dakota, KOTA. Go right ahead, Chad.
Hey, Rich, I just wanted to kind of stick up for a caller you had probably about 10 minutes ago. He was basically, he wanted to say that he can see there was a reason why people were hesitant to trust Christianity being taught in our schools, and he didn't have an example right away. I don't know if it's because he was nervous, but you kind of went on the attack, telling him that you were worried about him and that he must not be very smart because you didn't think his phone call out. I just had a couple examples of reasons why there's probably a lot of people who kind of fear Christianity taking over our schools. When you look at pastors and people, members of our Congress or just governors of states and stuff like that, that kind of, they portray that they're Christian, but what they say and what they do is far from it. Like Mark Robinson in North Carolina, he's the lieutenant governor, known Holocaust denier. He's called for the killing.
Chad, you see, the issue here is we're not trying to include Christianity, to teach and preach Christianity and proselytize in classrooms. The idea here was to bring Christianity in from a historical perspective to show how it informed the thinking of the founders. And that was the point. So it's not about why people, I would be concerned about people teaching any type of hate-filled anything, right? But that's not the point here. So I think both the caller and you're going in a very different direction than what this whole bill was designed to do, right? That was the whole point. And you took so much time. I can't get to Bill in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and WRNN, who wanted to talk about Biden's doctrine and try to defend Biden. This would have been some of the best radio of the night. Chad, I'll try call in earlier, man, so we have a little bit of time to unpack all of your Mark Robinson hatred. Anyway, folks, I am Rich Valdez. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. We'll be back tomorrow.